Today, the piece I'm going to be playing is called Morceau Symphonique, written by Alexandre Guilmant. But first, we need to learn about Romantic music. Romanticism was a very large artistic trend, not just in music, also in visual art and literature. The Romantic era is defined by an obsession with less physical things and a fascination with the unseen, more mysterious side of the world. Ghosts, spirits, magic, fantasy. In the visual arts, this usually manifested in kind of dark, mysterious ideas. In music, Romanticism manifested as a tendency to break previously established rules during the classical era. People began to write with a lot more complex harmonies and a lot less predictable form. Now, before we approach the piece, we need to figure out who was Alexandre Guilmant. Alexandre Guilmant. Alexandre Guilmant was a French composer, organist, and teacher. He was born in 1837 and was raised in the height of the Romantic era in France. He was a teacher and a founding member of the Schola Cantorum in France, and he was also a teacher at the Paris Conservatory. The bulk of his writing career was in the latter half of the 19th century, kind of the tail end of Romanticism in France. The vast majority of his writing is organ music because he was an organist, and a lot of his music is still common repertoire for organists today. Morceau Symphonique is actually kind of an exception to the rest of his writing. It's the only trombone piece he ever published, and it was written in 1902 as a competition piece for the trombone class at his school. Now, some of you may notice a problem immediately. The piece was written in 1902. Is it still romantic? A lot of people consider Romanticism to be kind of over by the turn of the 20th century. So to answer that question, we need to look at the history of the piece, and we need to see if this piece has any characteristics that would make it romantic. Again, most people consider Romanticism to be at its height during the 19th century and to be completely over by the turn of the 20th century. But remember that Guilmant was raised in the mid-1800s during the height of Romanticism, and the majority of his writing was romantic music. And to take it a step further, Guilmant actually wrote the piece trying to emulate the compositional style of an earlier romantic composer that was his mentor and also his boss. Therefore, even though this piece was composed kind of after what most people consider to be the Romantic era, it still does have pretty significant ties directly back to Romantic writing. I think we'll see that the characteristics of this piece also support this. Speaking of which, so what characteristics of this piece make it romantic? Well, from the very first bar that the trombone plays, we have this leap of a minor sixth. It's bold, it's dark, it's beautiful, and Guilmant is putting a huge amount of musical expression at the disposal of the performer. Really, throughout this entire movement, that dark, mysterious vibe established from the very first leap is really maintained throughout this entire movement. The expression doesn't stop. The musical conveyance of just dark, gorgeous ideas is consistent throughout this entire first movement up until the cadenza. Once we get to the cadenza, is there anything inherently romantic about the cadenza? I don't know, I guess not, but if we look at the rest of the pieces being very romantic, then the expectation is that there should be some virtuosity, some expression, or something that matches the vibe of the rest of the piece during the cadenza. Once we get to the theme, one very important... Hey, buddy. Oh. Hey, buddy. Yep, we're recording a video. Once we get to the theme, something very important is going to come up, and that is articulation. Because the main theme is just a scale, the style with which that I articulate and separate these notes is really important. Again, this is a French romantic piece. I can't go ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. It's not going to work correctly. It's not going to sound right. If I use a super legato do-do-do-do like from the beginning, it probably won't sound appropriate either. It's got to be somewhere in between. Not too aggressive, it's not Tchaikovsky, right? But also we want to have clarity with this sort of more virtuosic playing. Also, once we get to the theme, notice that the tonic is going to change very rapidly. But there's an important distinction here. Almost always there is a clear tonic, it's just that it's changing very quickly from bar to bar to phrase to phrase. This is different from 20th century atonal music or a destabilized tonic, There is still a clearly identifiable tonic. It's just that the tonic is changing very, very quickly. If you take any one individual bar, most of the time you can clearly tell what the tonic of that bar is. It's just that it may be different by the very next phrase or the very next bar. So again, this is a characteristic of Romantic music, not of 20th century music. Now, there is still chromaticism being used throughout the piece, but it's usually kind of bridging the gap between two tonal centers. Another characteristic I consider to be Romantic is the range of the writing. Romantic music is known for utilizing the full range of an instrument, and Morceau Symphonique definitely fits that criteria. We have a high C sharp, which is definitely in the stratosphere for the trombone, and we have a low B flat, and we hang out in all sorts of different registers in between throughout the piece. The last consideration I have before performing this piece is my phrasing. There's a lot of huge dynamic leaps over a short period of time during this piece. Phrases will start very softly and get very loud and vice versa. It's going to be hard to keep that smooth, but I think that's a really important part of that Romantic expression is we have a wide range of register, but we also have a wide range of dynamics. I'll also try to use a little bit of extra vibrato in the first movement. Trombone players tend to be pretty conservative with vibrato, but I'm going to try to crank it up a little bit to kind of fit the expression vibe of the first movement. I'll also be using some rubato as a part of my phrasing, but nothing too crazy. All right, with all of those things in mind, let's play this piece of music.